Welcome back to the Human Nexus podcast. My name is Andrew Brazis. I am a marketing and business consultant and private chef.
Welcome back. My name is Miss Laura Machiste. I am an online tarot reader, energy coach, and holistic massage therapist. And on this episode, we are talking about seasonal depression and grief, as well as its connection to the seasons of the time of the zodiac sign that it happens in. So, first thing first, definitely seasonal depression with the winter time. I know there could be a couple watchers on here that are in like the other hemisphere where they may actually have like a different season that they have winter in. We're in the northern, so gonna go on the northern hemisphere. Right, we're in the northern hemisphere. Okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel, well, you are a Leo,
Yeah.
so you have that ruler of the sun. I have a Leo
Yeah.
moon, so I definitely have that like sun energy that I enjoy. But when it gets to winter, a lot of the times our energy depletes and we get into
Mm.
those senses of not getting that like recharge from the sun, not getting that vitamin D, like especially to our hormones and stuff like that, where the vitamin D really helps with our serotonin. So I definitely feel like there is some type of interconnection to the what the earth is doing connected to like our bodies. And I don't know if you ever noticed, but you know, when it's about to be fall or it's about to be winter, and over here we change our clocks. You ever
Mm.
notice that like the earth like already is doing it
As
itself?
far, oh yeah, like it's getting darker earlier. Yeah,
Right. Like the
naturally.
earth
Yeah.
does it on its own and then we just push
Hmm.
it like another hour. Um,
Yeah.
so I kind of feel like in that way, it makes seasonal depression worse. I feel like free
Yeah.
willingly, like man-made daylight savings and whatever else the thing is called. I feel like that makes seasonal depression like 10 times worse for a collective because of them doing that.
Yeah. 100%. I would say too, to add to that, when the time changed here and it started getting darker earlier,
Hmm.
my mood was like shot, which that's usually not the case. This has probably been the worst year of that for me. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Me too. I got really tired. Like I slept a lot the last couple
Mm.
weeks and just sleeping longer than usual.
Yeah.
But that would make sense too because they do say that like bears and stuff hibernate in the winter and like certain animals and stuff like that. And like we're all interconnected. So that would make sense. Maybe humans get a little bit more tired or just
Hmm.
feeling the need to like stay in and not do so much. And that could go hand in hand with not being outside and like having that depression kick in or all of those feelings of, I feel like the holiday season seems like it's a good time for people, but
I,
on
I
the
was gonna
outside,
say,
on
I
the
was gonna
outside.
say, yeah, like the seasonal depression plus holidays. My holiday, like I hate the holidays. Like I love the holidays, but
Hmm.
my holiday seasons have been garbage for years, and so like
Yeah.
it's not a time that I'm looking forward to.
Hmm.
And
I feel
so
like as
like
children we did, but not
yeah,
anymore.
um, and so adding that on top of the time change, on top of the like natural time change.
Hmm.
It's rough. Is there anything that you do to combat seasonal depression?
I kind of go with my body, and if it wants to sleep, if it wants to stay asleep, then I'm like, all right, let's go. Like, we'll stay
Hmm.
asleep. If it wants to sleep a little bit earlier, I'll try to do my best in like staying active in what I was doing, but it gives you like there's a little bit less motivation to do things. There is actually a sun lamp that you can get. I actually
Oh
have
yeah.
one. I have to like it's like underneath something though. I have to like get it out or buy a new one where it like gives off the same type of feeling that it would be if you were in the sun,
Mhm.
and it gives you that like uplifting energy. I just try to like keep on moving around and not like think about things so much, but
Yeah.
to go to like the holidays when there are those moments throughout the winter where the time is already moving slower
Hmm.
in this
For sure.
period of time. And then you have it on top of holidays to where Thanksgiving is like an all day thing. You have off from work here and there. And if there isn't that 20 plus family to be around, it's like a super, super, super lonely time because you're off
Yeah.
from work. You're seeing, especially with social media now, people only
Hmm.
post the good stuff. So you're going to see all these families and all of these like matching outfits, and you're going to see all these people like doing this or doing that. And if you're not one of those energies doing that, I feel like the wintertime really makes it seem and really hones in on maybe how lonely or how alone you really are without like realizing it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I feel like that's
Like,
been like one of the biggest things for me.
yeah, I mean, I would say, and this is probably for most people, but like grief comes to the forefront. I mean, when I lost
Mhm.
my grandmother to cancer, it was like the beginning of November.
Right,
And so like holidays are rough now because
right.
of that, like more rough than they were. And
Hmm.
so yeah, the like the family aspect or lack thereof for sure is like a
Yeah.
big proponent. As far as like getting through the, I don't know, darker seasons, I think for me, movement's been really important. I don't
Hmm.
have a sun lamp, but I know that they work really well. They're actually pretty cheap. They're like 12 or like $30. They're like
Yeah.
not they're like relatively inexpensive. Those are really good. So I'm fortunate enough to where I have my apartment, I have a lot of sunlight coming in.
Hmm.
So I always make a point to like lay in the sun in my apartment just to like get extra sunlight if I can. But then
Right.
also, this is kind of weird, but I watch a lot of comedy. I watch more comedy in the winter
Hmm.
because I think like laughter is good for you. And
Yeah.
so like being able to, I don't know, get some dopamine that way is really huge too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I like to, ever since I became more spiritual, I stray away from watching things that have like no meaning or just like straight up like violence and terror
Mm.
and like all of that. Like I can watch a horror movie if it has like a nice backstory and it has like something meaningful in it. But I agree, comedy is definitely the best thing. And it's all from like what you're feeding your subconscious. So
Yeah.
that goes hand in hand with watching things that would uplift you more a little bit and listening to specific music, maybe not all the
Oh
sad
yeah,
songs,
music is a good one too. Yeah.
maybe a little
Mhm.
bit more uplifting music. Like just before I was listening to like Spanish, I don't even know Spanish, and I'm listening to Spanish music just because like it has more of like the dancey vibe to
Yeah.
it. So I
Like
was doing
dancing's
that.
another thing too, which is really good. Just to like
Hmm.
get your body moving and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I feel like it is. It's just like the movement when like your energy doesn't do anything for too long, it starts to internalize, and that's
Yeah.
when grief comes up. And also connected to when we have winter, we have it during Capricorn season,
Yeah.
Aquarius season, and Pisces season. Well, some of Pisces season. And Capricorn, Aquarius are ruled by Saturn, so those are harder aspects to deal with. Like I think Capricorn is modern ruler, Aquarius is Saturn's ancient ruler. Yes, because I think modern ruler now of Aquarius is Uranus.
Mm.
So I don't care if it was ancient or modern. I just go, if that's what they are indicating, then it does make sense that Saturn would rule those two signs that give us one of the hardest seasons of our year. Saturn being like the father figure, learning lessons, um, kind of gives you that sense of what are you structured in, like how good
Yeah.
is your stability, is your stability only good when the sun is out,
Damn,
or
that's good.
right,
Yeah.
like does your structure, do you lose the structure when you don't have that motivation of what's around us per se.
Hmm.
And Capricorn is that hard, like workaholic, very stern energy. And then that Aquarius energy gives us that rebellion to where we're, okay, well, what is not working for our structure that makes us that when we come to these seasons, we don't feel stable.
And
So
Aquarius season starts January?
yeah, January 20th, maybe.
Okay.
Sagittarius is a winter sign too, but I feel like Sagittarius season is,
It's like the beginning of winter where it's like fun and
yeah, where it's like
yeah.
you still have some hot days
Mhm.
peeking through your forecast.
Or you get like
For
snow for the first time of the year and it's like, yeah.
yeah. I feel like that is really a big position for people, especially with everyone's individualized birth charts as well. So I definitely feel like it makes sense that it would be more difficult around those times of the year because of the season of the zodiac, as well as because of what nature is doing, which
Mhm.
I just find it so interesting that like it goes along with it that way.
Yeah.
And also to bring in the sense of grief as someone who has also like lost people close to me or people that like I
Sure.
would spend holidays with.
Hmm.
A lot of the times like the holidays have that underlying sadness feeling because it reminds you
Yeah.
who's not here.
Hmm.
Because all throughout your year, you're doing things. There isn't
Yeah,
any
you're
like,
busy and
right,
yeah.
there isn't any like the collective gets together with their family November, what is this year, 28th, and then December 25th. Like there is none of that throughout the year. So when it happens, it's so much more obvious of who's missing from the table,
Yeah.
who's missing from the event. And that's what I experienced when I lost my dad. The remembering he's gone was the harder parts to it.
Yeah.
When you forgot and had to like remind yourself, those were the parts that I would like. It almost like it was a guilty feeling when you forgot about it and reminded yourself in a sense too.
Yeah. And that's super normal too. And I'm sure like on the grief side, like as heavy as that is, I think it's still important to like move through.
Hmm.
Like we definitely have to like when we have those moments, like sit in it, like not dwell in it and like spend, days, weeks or whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah. And I think too, like going into grief, I don't think it hits as hard. Like at least for me, like it doesn't hit as hard in the summer.
Yeah. There's just too much going on. There isn't
Yeah.
enough. That's why I feel like the winter like forces you to internalize, but also then again, going with nature, the trees lose its leaves. Nature is also forced to internalize in those seasons as well. So I guess it kind of makes sense, but
Yeah,
yeah, I feel like it comes in waves.
yeah, and I agree with that. And I think too, like going I have this idea or this thought of like the Rocky cutscene. Almost it feels like it almost always happens in the winter. Like
Hmm.
especially like the times leading up to like the New Year's resolution, like the last couple of months. You're like, oh, I'm gonna get in this good shape or whatever, and then January 1st hits, and like you're continuing that process. But like after January, most people kind of just like fall off.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
that
like the
motivation.
yeah, because it's like, oh, well, I'm not grieving and sad and like I don't have all this negative, not negative, but like fuel, like,
Hmm.
keeping me energized to push through.
Right. Yeah, that
Uh,
definitely makes sense, especially with New Year's resolutions. Most people do decide to be more healthy somehow, and
and
they
that
usually doesn't
plays
last.
into like the Capricorn going into Aquarius theme really well.
Right. Like, where are you structured and where aren't you?
Mhm.
And that would make sense
Yeah,
as to why a lot of people start their New Year's resolutions in Aquarius season because they're trying to rebel the old self.
dang.
Yeah. And then that
Yeah,
would make
that's
sense
really
as to why they
interesting.
fall off. Yeah, right. I didn't think about it that way
Yeah,
either
it's
until
like
now.
baked into society, which is crazy.
Literally,
Yeah.
everybody does that, or majority.
Uh, and I have a Capricorn moon,
Hmm.
and I like for the longest time I really thrived like right now it's dark here.
Mhm.
5:30 p.m. And like I used to look forward to it and like love it so much because then I could just like disconnect from the rest of the
Right.
world. But then now that I've like tried to move through a lot of, I don't know, emotional stuff, it's like now, like I said, it hit me the hardest this year. Just like,
Mhm.
damn, like I don't want it to be dark already. Like I want to go do shit.
Right.
And I wonder how much of my Capricorn moon has influenced like that, I don't know, like feeling of comfort.
Well, that's actually interesting that you said that this is the year that you kind of felt different about it, because
Mhm.
this is the year that Pluto moves out of Capricorn and it's been in there for
Yeah,
20 years.
yeah, that's
And
true.
after 20 years, we weren't that much older in life, like we are
Yeah,
still like kids. So,
yeah,
yeah,
that's crazy. And
that's
it's also
mid-year
crazy that
time
it's ending oh now, like today.
today. Yeah. And we're talking
Um,
about it right now.
but it's like ending at a time where you're like, oh,
Like the structure.
yeah, you're like going back into yourself
Hmm.
naturally and like trying to like re-figure out what structure is to you and
Right.
you
And
know,
that's what I feel like the seasons do is that Capricorn makes you structured to the collective, and Aquarius asks you, are you only doing this because everyone else is doing it, or are you doing this
mhm,
because this is something that who you are? So I feel like in the next 20 years of this being, I mean, I've only been alive for Pluto and Capricorn. I can't remember what it was like when I was 10 years
mhm.
old before that, when it was in Sagittarius. But if we're going along with kind of like what we're saying with the seasons, a lot of people will probably come into the realization of like, okay, what am I doing with my structure? Am I doing it because I'm skilled in this, or am I doing it because I actually like doing it? Do I stand out from the crowd, or do I have the same skills as everyone else?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's going to be for the next like 20 years, where people like, especially with the rise of AI and robots and stuff like
Well,
that.
you say that it makes me think of like how big in the last like 2 or 3 years the idea of authenticity has become. Like
Mhm.
authenticity really wasn't that big of a thing. Like I
Right.
guess it wasn't like talked about as much, but then now it's like such a, I mean, it's like a foundation of my business, really, um, which is really important. So it's just interesting how like the buildup happens, and then now we're here, and these
Mhm.
changes are happening, and it's like, how authentic are you, really? Like, are
Right.
you in alignment with what you want or who you say you are? Or,
Yep. And that's where I feel like it goes hand in hand with the whole like, are you just doing what you've been told by society to do? Because now, like, for example, say you have a cleaning business and you're the best cleaning business in your area, but now all of a sudden there's a bunch of robots cleaning the house. What is going to set you apart from these things? Like, I feel like people are going to start questioning their niche. Um,
or if not their niche, their why, if anything. Like,
mhm,
why am I doing a cleaning business?
right.
Like, do I really like cleaning, or is it
Mhm,
because I want to make? I know I can make X amount of dollars a month, a
right.
year, whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what's going to happen is that like the shallow of I'm just doing this to make money is going to be
Hmm.
so much amplified in people now. I feel like it's going to
Yeah.
be so much more obvious in the next some odd years with this transition into Aquarius of, are you really doing it because you're good at it, or are you doing it because you think this is where the money is? It's going to be so
Hmm.
much more obvious like who is actually good at the things that they're doing, are authentic in the things that they're doing, have intention with the things that they're doing, and who is like basically like a human robot just doing what they're doing because they think that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. That's
I
good.
think that's
Well,
going to
well said.
happen.
I
we'll
mean, I
we'll
think it
have
is
this to
happening.
save it, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it is happening already, on
Hmm.
like a smaller scale to capitalize on like this terrible time. Like we're
That's true.
struggling with seasonal depression, grief, all these things.
Hmm.
Is there anything that you think someone should be doing? Or is there anything that you would intentionally want to be doing that you're not, or you wish you could do more of
Um,
to make it through, I guess, and come out the other side. Let me finish this. To make it through and come out the other side, like feeling like, oh shit, I didn't just like waste away through my seasonal depression. I used it.
right. I'm definitely in a position of trying to turn the internalization into something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like when we were in COVID and I had no choice but to internalize for so long, no matter what the weather was. That's how Miss Machiste was born. So I feel like people should take this dark time to find the creation in it. Like there's this like lovely quote about trees about like it seems like they're dead on the outside, but they're actually regenerating their energy internally, like they're doing something, but on the outside it
Yeah.
seems like they're dead. And I
Yeah.
feel like people should do that with the winter season. Like hone in on what needs to be faced, but like still find the light, like be the light, like figure out how to be the sun when the sun isn't out, like figure out how to have that internalization that doesn't bring you down, but like lifts you up, which also goes hand in hand with like alchemizing energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like doing it for the plot. Sometimes like people put themselves in positions to get hurt because they want the rise out of it from afterwards, which I find crazy. But I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes subconsciously people put themselves through suffering because they know on a soul level they can alchemize it. But I don't think the personality is realizing it when it's happening.
Yeah.
So I would say to like alchemize whatever you're feeling, whether it's grief or sadness or loneliness, alchemize it in a way to show up for yourself instead of waiting for another person to show up for you or waiting for something outside of you to help you with the sadness or to help you with the loneliness or to help you and like kind of figure out. Like it took me a long time to be comfortable with just being by myself and not feeling the need to call up a friend and saying, hey, come hang out with me. And just having that, like, no, like I can sit here and be and enjoy my own company. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the winter time is like a big moment to figure out how to enjoy your own company. And if that's not possible, then that's also a telling sign that maybe you don't love yourself how you thought you would. Like a big sign for me and people, like you could be confident, you could be cocky, you could be all of these things like I'm the greatest person ever, but if you need to be around someone 24/7, if you need to hang out with a friend 24/7, if you need to be around like your lover 24/7 or anything in that department, I feel like love could be a little bit different because there could be a little bit of connecting of the lives where like maybe you actually have to like talk to this person, like if you have a kid and like stuff like that. But I feel like a big telling time, like if you cannot just sit there with yourself, put on a movie and not need to be like loved or caressed or cuddled or have another person next to you, I feel like that is like true like power of self. And I wasn't like that for a lot of my life. Like I always had to have something that I was doing after work. I couldn't just go
So
home and sit there.
yeah, so you weren't comfortable in like the silence of, I don't know,
Hmm.
solidarity essentially. Yeah.
Right. I felt like I needed the distraction because I didn't want
Mm.
to sit with myself. And now I'm
And
like, I could hang out. I'd rather hang out with myself.
so in that process, and share as much as you'd like, but
Hmm.
did you find that finding comfortability in solidarity that you like what did you get rid of? Or I guess what did you like I hate to use the word shadow work because I don't
Hmm.
love the term, but like is there something you worked through that was like, oh, like did you have like an aha moment?
Yeah. Like I came to the realization that I was like a chronic relationship person. So like I
Mm,
didn't really know who I was if I wasn't in a relationship. And
Yeah.
then when I wasn't in a relationship, I had friends that were very active in my life. So, like, if
Mhm.
I wasn't in that romantic relationship, my friend was there, and now I was with the friend every day, or circulating friends throughout the week, or like something like that. So, what I realized in my solitude was basically that I needed to let go of feeling maybe needed by other people, and like kind of like needing myself and saying like, why can't you need you, or
Mm.
why can't
Yeah,
you
that's
be the
good.
person that you need, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense.
But there's like also like kind of, I mean, I'm also a Pisces sun, so I go from like one extreme to the other, right?
Hmm.
So the one extreme was being with a different person every day. Like, all right, if I'm single, what friend am I with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? What friend am I with on the weekend? Or maybe I was with the same, like I have this one friend, we were with each other every single day for like 3 years straight. Crazy.
Hmm.
Um, and then having that sense of, if the romantic relationship was there, like being with that person more consistently, and then kind of once I flipped and decided, oh yeah, I do enjoy spending time with myself. I almost did it too much, to where like
Hmm.
I wasn't hanging out with people as
Yeah.
much. I wasn't feeling the need to get the validation of attention from people. I didn't want to date at all. It was kind of like, well, why would I go on a date if I could be in my blanket cocoon in my
Yeah.
room watching a nice movie or something? So I feel like
So
maybe I learned, but I feel like now I'm too
it was
extreme.
almost so you got so comfortable with being alone that it was uncomfortable the other way.
Right.
Yeah,
So now I'm
that's
trying to
tough.
find the middle ground to where I can spend time with people, but also have the
Mhm.
balance where I am by myself.
Yeah.
Because that was really it, especially like when I did open up to dating again. I was just like, well, this sounds like a good idea, but being horizontal in my pajamas also sounds like a good idea. So then it became, would would hanging out with you be better than me hanging out with myself? And I
Hmm.
think that extreme of self-love gave me, no, nothing's going to be better than hanging out with yourself, so you're not going to do anything. And then I wouldn't.
Yeah. What about for me, I have this like or version, not version, but the way that I see this is like I have my ego self,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have like my present self, and then there's like your my higher self, right? And like the higher self is like the future version of who I want to be. And then my present self is like now whatever I'm going through. And then ego self is either the past version of me or the person version of me that is probably doing things that isn't going to get me into the person I want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in those like types of scenarios where I'm kind of the same thing, like dang, like I can sit at home on my couch with my cat, play video games all day, and it's like the happiest of my life. But then I
Mm-hmm.
like look at the future version of myself and I'm like, that person doesn't want to be the ego version of myself. So
Right.
like how do I stay grounded and present and then grieve that version of myself that I'm like walking away from, the safety,
Mm-hmm.
comfortable couch version,
Right.
and like make more plans and like hang out with people. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's serious work.
Well, that's what happened to me. Like, it still is happening, where like I can
Mhm.
feel like the universe is kind of saying like, okay, you figured out how to spend time with yourself, but like you're doing it too hard. And
Yeah.
then my car broke, and then I had that, damn, I kind of
Mhm.
want to do something, but I'm not doing anything. And then I had that dialogue with myself, and I'm like, well, your car wasn't broken the whole time, but now that
And
your
you didn't do
car
anything.
doesn't work,
Yeah.
you want to go do things. So I think that moment happened on purpose to get me out of the cocoon a
Mhm.
little bit. And like the sitting at home and being with yourself, like, yeah, it's a telling thing for me now because I've experienced what it is to be in the other extreme where you have to be
Yeah.
around someone all the time. But I also don't think that like the extreme of solitude is good either. But I
Yeah.
also feel like it's good to have the balance. But
Well, I think that balance looks
uh,
different for everybody.
right, exactly. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have a way to explain it because
Yeah.
sometimes it is beneficial to have those companions and people around you, but then sometimes like it's not. And one of my newer friends in my life, she actually like taught me how to receive dialogue of from another person like, hey, look, I'm going through something right now. I don't want you to think I hate you, but like I have to be alone for
Mhm.
whatever amount of time, where I have that like, no, 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 I want to help you get through this. And like kind of realizing like some things people like have to go through on their own. And I feel like most of my life I didn't let myself get through anything on my own. And now I'm like being that person that I felt like I needed, but trying to find that balance in not being too by myself, because then this is what happens. Sees the seasons come, the
Mhm.
holiday seasons come, and then you kind of like realize what you've been doing the whole year, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's a lot to work through. But also there's really I don't think there's like an answer for anybody. Like as far
Right.
as like, oh, I'm gonna spend 3 days inside and then I'm gonna spend the rest of the week out. Like
Right.
I think it varies and it also varies on like what you're doing. Like some
Hmm.
days me going to the gym fills my battery up and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. And there's other days where I'm like, I know when I go to the gym, I'm gonna hate it. I'm gonna be so exhausted afterwards. I mean, I
Right.
still go, but like that's not filling my cup.
Hmm.
So like doing more, especially like during seasonal depression, doing things that fill your cup, probably should be a priority, I would imagine,
Right.
for everybody.
And I like how you said that too, because not everything that fills your cup is going to fill your cup in
All the
every
time.
scenario.
Yeah.
Right. Like maybe the gym makes you feel good at certain times, but when you're in a different type of energy or in a feeling that
Mhm.
that's not going to match it with, like sometimes it's doing the total opposite and taking a nap or
Yeah.
calling up a friend
Well, that
or
well that goes into like knowing and like understanding your body, like listening to your intuition and like
hmm
maybe using this season to like tap deeper into your intuition is a good
right,
thing.
and like
So then when
figuring
that,
out more about yourself.
yeah,
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's a big thing for this time because it kind of gives you no choice. Like there's
yeah.
only so much you can do
Mhm.
and there's only so much that's happening. But there are some people that I'm sure take the reins of holiday season. They're doing something every single day. They are unfazed by any type of nature shift. Um, I just feel like it may be more of like people who are more sensitive to the collective.
Mhm.
Because I have been around certain people that like their energy is consistent throughout the whole year. Like
Yeah.
they're never too high, they're never too low. Maybe they're even if they're a little out of balance, it's not necessarily like obvious,
Mhm.
but I definitely feel like you only know so much either. So like maybe in my
Yeah.
perception it didn't seem like anything, but they could have been at home crying in a ball in the corner and they just had a really good way of hiding it. So
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, there is really like no specific answer, but maybe like figuring out what fills your cup at those times. Maybe it's movement, maybe it's rest, maybe it's a combination of both, where like
Mhm.
you do a lot of movement and you go to sleep really early and don't have any internalization that isn't like thinking and using the brain. Because I also
Well,
feel like
like,
that
yeah,
happens.
like in that process, giving yourself grace to be like, oh shit. I didn't leave the couch for 2 weeks and
Right.
being like, oh, that's okay. Like I was down and
Hmm.
out. No big deal. Because I think that like
Yeah.
that happens. Like you're, I don't know, you're rooted somewhere and you dwell on something. And then you're like, damn, like I hate myself or I hate that I did that. And then
Hmm.
now you're like stuck in a new negative thought pattern,
Right.
which is not conducive to getting through the season.
Hmm. And honestly, like as like a female,
Mhm.
having this conversation with someone like you who is a masculine person, it is like helpful for like the female perception as well, because a lot of the times like seasonal depression and like mental health is always emphasized on women
Mhm.
opposed to men, and
Yeah.
which is like super sad too, because a lot of the times like men need it and they don't have those
Mhm.
resources to like be open about it. But to have those types of like conversations and dynamics where it's like, I bet you a bunch of men go through seasonal depression, but none of them like actually like outwardly talk about it. So,
Yeah.
like you saying that right there is probably not only going to be helpful for like female perceptions where they kind of just think like we're the ones with all the issues, but also for like men who are like, well, wow, okay,
Yeah. No,
I do go through
dudes are definitely going through it for sure.
this.
Like
Yeah.
the males are definitely going through it. But I think too, as like a male in society, we're not really taught how to like experience that. So like they could be
Hmm.
going through it, but like, oh, I'm fine or I'm not dealing with anything. Like
Right.
internally they're going crazy, but they don't know how to
Hmm.
like express it externally, which
Right.
is a part of the journey, I guess. But I think if it's talked about more, that's helpful.
Hmm.
Even if you're like just asking, like be like, hey, today was really rough. Like you don't have to like explain yourself. You don't have to
Right.
like get into
Exactly.
details. But just like sharing it with others,
Hmm.
doing that, like opening yourself up enough and getting like just like a, I don't know, some sort of reciprocal energy of like, oh yeah, that's probably really hard. Like you do it enough and you're like, oh shit, I can actually talk about this. Like
Right.
it's not a big deal. It's better to talk about it than hold it in for sure.
And I feel like that's what society gave to women. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're
Yeah.
upset about something, go ahead, react. But to men,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, you're being the baby. And it's like, no, like, you should also react. You should also
Mhm.
express yourself. You should also, like, speak your mind and live out the heart in a sense. But I just feel like they're kind of taught more to shut down than anything
Mhm.
else, which you shut down too hard, then you just no longer exist. You're just like a being with
Yeah.
just a
And
body.
I have been somebody chronically who avoids shuts down in my life. So coming from that place, like you definitely life's so much better when you're able to express it in whatever
Right.
way. Like it could be a million things. Like speaking
Hmm.
about it. Dancing actually is kind of fun.
Yes.
Um, I think like video games for me somehow is it's kind of double-edged sword. I can get like lost and like detached, but I can also use it in a way that like helps me move through things.
Hmm.
Oddly enough, like movies, TV is another
Yeah.
really good source. But like above all, just like talking to people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like we all um degrade the whole like communication and conversation of expression. Like a lot of people think that like, oh, I shouldn't say that because then this person's going to think I'm emotional, like, and things like that. And a lot of the times those are the conversations that need to be had, or those are the conversations that need to be opened up to
Mhm.
anybody to feel like they are more comfortable in expressing with things, because then it's just a whole bunch of shallow situations and you feel like you can't be
Yeah.
honest about your
Well, that goes back to
feelings.
authenticity. Like
Right.
if you're something I learned in the last couple of years, and I've really like been trying to practice really hard is like if you're authentic, you create more aligned relationships.
Hmm.
So in those scenarios, like you're dealing with seasonal depression and you speak up about it, if
Right.
somebody is like gives you shit for it, then they're probably not good for your life anyways.
Yep.
But if you tell it to somebody and they like resonate with that, then you build like a really deep connection just off of like some semi-surface level, I don't know, emotional sharing. And with
Mm-hmm.
that, you start developing like really good connections. And all of a sudden you're like surrounded by all these really good connections.
Right.
So like,
Exactly.
yeah, speak up.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing you're gonna do is like lose a connection that's not good for you.
Right, exactly. And I feel like that goes hand in hand when people like do go through the holidays like this with seasonal depression and like don't say anything and then they
Yeah.
get out of it. They're holding on to what happened and then they bring it up in a couple months and the window of opportunity where the feeling was present is like non-existent. There
Mhm.
isn't that like, okay, explain it to me. It's more being explained from a past tense opposed to
Yeah.
like a present tense moment. And I feel like that's where, as humans, we miss those opportunities to, like, A, connect deeper, or B, just be honest with
Hmm.
what you're going through. And a lot of the times, it's very surprising. Like, you'll be honest with someone, and yeah, maybe you'll get that whole, like, oh, that wasn't the response I was looking for. But aren't you glad you said that? Because then you would have never known that
Yeah.
that person was like that. Or if you get a response that's super receptive and you're like, wow, look at, I found something out about this person or discovered something about something that's in common just from speaking up.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, on both scenarios, when you speak up and you like, let's say it's sticking with seasonal depression, it's like really heavy depression.
Mm-hmm.
Just telling somebody, even if it's received poorly, you're like, oh man, I'm so, like you feel lighter because you're just like
Right.
offloading it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's really important too, because then you're like not carrying it around alone,
Right.
even if the person you who receives it is like, I don't know, not, they're just like awful at receiving whatever you have to say, but it still feels good.
It's so funny because I used to be that person like back in the day. I used to say some like totally out of the box feelings or ways that I was like just kind of like totally unfiltered just to see what the person would respond with. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, well, if you give me a response that's kind of like, ooh, then all right, I figured out who you are pretty fast.
Yeah.
But now I kind of like just let it occur and how it's going to occur instead of like being the um, calculated expresser or like I'll say something specifically just to see the way you'll respond, even if it's
Mhm.
something that like I feel like is important or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you should absolutely like if I have something that kind of like I've sent you like memes before on Instagram. Like if I have something that makes me think of somebody, I
Hmm.
send it in the moment. And
Right.
like it's just like why would I wait or like I don't know, take away from that opportunity of connection just
Right.
because maybe you won't receive it well.
Hmm. Exactly.
Like just go
Yeah.
for it. Do it.
So basically, speaking up is definitely it. And around these times, for sure, when you're feeling any type of way, if anybody has any seasonal depression or ways to get out of it, that could be very beneficial for any of our viewers. Leave a comment down below, and it would be really nice to see other people's experiences and feelings towards that, as well as like ways and resolutions and just like ways to process things. And next time, we will be talking about the afterlife and our perception on all things transition on to the other side.
In the comments down below, share like what everyone's doing to get through the seasonal depression.
Mhm.
Hopefully, you know, perhaps building a community in the comments if people need help or whatever. Um, and then the afterlife is next, so that'll be exciting. Thank you guys for listening. See you next time.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next episode. Bye.